Nobody's sticking around for just coming in and going in a circle, lifting some weights and leaving. It is all of those small things all the way built around that. I mean, it sounds simple when you say it like that, but it takes a little more work and effort, but that's the real magic.
Matt Helen.
Back in studio. You ready?
Yeah, man. 2 weeks in a row. Well, we skipped a week, actually.
Did we do last week? No, it was Thanksgiving.
Yeah. We skipped a whole week. We've been pretty lame lately, but we've been busy, dude. Got stuff going on.
I don't know what you're doing, but I'm really busy.
Your little light over there. Just reach around behind it. Push it to no. There you go.
Is it right in your eyes so you can't see?
You got a dad joke?
I do. You ready?
Yeah, man.
It's just straight from Facebook, I think. Why does a chicken coop have 2 doors?
Why?
Because if it had 4, it'd be a chicken sedan.
But is it a coupe or a coupe?
Coupe.
Man, so Thanksgiving dinner, right? We argued all day about what to call a medieval soldier. All day.
Yeah.
Eventually, we just gave up and called it a night.
Yes. Like your theme
yes.
joke.
Yeah,
Look at you, man. You're ready.
I work it into the holidays. It's like, it's there's levels, Matt. There's levels to this shit. No, you've been too busy, man. You work too much. Like, all I do is think about dad jokes all day. You know what I do think about, though? What I thought about recently? You know what I thought about, Matt, the other day as I was pondering life in general? I thought about the British cycling team. You ever think about them?
Never.
Never do.
Never did. Probably never will after today.
You might. You might indeed. But it's often used as a case study for business, so I thought we would explain what it is, and then we can use it as an opportunity to talk about the example that they set and how that can affect your business.
Sure, rock
specifically in alloys. So essentially, the British cycling team historically has been horrible. So up until 2002, they had only won 1 gold medal in 76 years of the Olympics. So they're abysmal, right?
Pretty weak sauce.
Weak sauce. I mean, they're not and also when your performance is that poor, you don't get funding, the infrastructure sucks. You can imagine the culture in a team that loses all the time. It's like being on the Atlanta Falcons. You know what I mean? Like, you're just going to lose. Like, it's just preordained that you suck.
Or a Cowboy.
So, yeah, well, touche. Yeah, and the Cowboys are terrible, and they're really hard to like these days. So I'm switching teams. I don't know who I like right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point, it is pervasive. You can have a culture like that where they just can't seem to crack it. And it's weird because the players can be different. Obviously, the cyclists can be different. The coaches can be different, but you just can't crack it. So in 2002, they hire this guy to come in, Dave Brailsford. So he comes in and he implements essentially the strategy, the aggregation of marginal gains, right? And basically what it is it's like he takes a look at the entire ecosystem of the cycling team. So it's not just like, hey, we need to ride faster, or we need to do this or that. He implements all sorts of detailed improvements, incremental improvements in their life, like the way they sleep, the temperature that they sleep at, right? Their mental health, their nutrition, and not just macro, but like down to the science, every little thing. And at first it was like, it seemed silly because it wasn't the main thing. It didn't seem like the main thing. It's like, okay, we're not even focusing on bicycles. Like, why are we sweating the quality of the oats that we're eating in the morning? It's like, well, there's a reason, right? And so he got all the buy-in, and his whole idea was like, we just get like 1% better and 1% better. And you've heard that. There's a lot of motivational stuff. It's like 1% better every day. But there is some merit to it. And if you have a measurable study, right, that proves it out, it's pretty interesting. So essentially, he comes on board 2002. They show up at the 2008 Beijing Olympics and win 14 gold medals. They totally dominate. And so, 14 medals, 8 golds. And of course, that's far and away better, and they were the best cycling team by far as far as medal count. And then they came back to 2012 Olympics in London, same thing, 12 medals, 8 golds. And so they're literally the world's best cycling team from the world's worst, just based on implementing these strategies, right? So I figured what we would do, just using that as an example, is break down sort of business lessons, if you will, that come from that, right? That would help in an alloy or basically any small business. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So we broke it down into just 7 different points. So we don't have to spend a ton of time on each one. Some of them are really on the nose. Some might be a little bit more interesting. But yeah, I think it's a good idea. So the first one is the power of marginal gains. And essentially it just means like small incremental gains can lead to exponential results over time, right? You can break down every single aspect of your business. And I think about it through the lens of like an alloy. There's a lot of little things that lead to the macro numbers that we're measuring, like retention, sales, right? That type of idea. And so there's lots of behaviors and little bitty things that go around all the things that we do. And all those things are made to produce the macro result. In this case, for cycling, it'd be a gold medal. For us, it's like a thriving business that's helping more people, making more money, right? So I can think of examples for us where, you're running like the 7 core tenets of a great session and you're doing it consistently well, right? And there are details, right? He's saying hello within 10 seconds. Does everyone have the exercise explained to them through their lens? Are they asked if they're scheduled for their next session? Consistently doing those things will lead to one of the macro things that we measure, which is retention. But there's all these little tiny details in a business. And if you drill down on each one of them a little bit, like how is the quality of sleep? What's the temperature? Same kind of idea here, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we break everything down. We use EOS. We'll probably talk about it more inside of this, but it's like why we do, weekly behaviors we measure in our scorecard, right? What are these small marginal things that if we do well over time, we know they're going to lead to better outcomes in the future, right? So following up your leads on time, actually making enough phone calls to the 7 core tenets, to doing your accountability check-ins, to just literally sending that one text message after, every session telling somebody good job, or if they miss a session, all of those things add up and they're very small, but stack them up to your point.
Yeah. And it can seem daunting. Like if you're an alloy franchisee and you're listening to this, you're like, well, it's a lot of stuff, but like you can just start attacking like one little thing at a time until you nail it. Right.
Sure.
But the point is the sum of these tiny little things that seem insignificant is better retention, helping more people, making more money. That's the thing you have to realize. So it's not like none of them, it's almost like everything matters would be a good way to put that, right?
Yeah.
Like I know you got to keep the main thing, but if you just peel the cover off of that a little bit, there's a ton of, to your point, leading behaviors that will lead to those lagging numbers that we want to see as business owners. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's essentially what you're saying. So, okay, marginal gain. So everything matters. Look at your business. Certainly, if you're in an alloy, you have a lot of little processes, a bunch of which you just named that need to be followed. And if so, you're going to be really happy with your outcomes, right? Mm-hmm. The next one is data-driven decision-making. So in the cycling, I mean, obviously, he's measuring the results of all these little things that they're doing and see if it's making these marginal gains, right? And same thing with us, right? Like you have to use the data to run the business. It's sort of like someone saying, I need more leads emotionally because their business isn't growing. But really, when you look at their business, their problem is more retention or it's staff training. Well, staff training is a lot harder than like switching digital marketing companies, right? So the knee jerk can be like, I need to switch digital marketing companies. But if you really drilled into the data, maybe you are getting a lot of leads, right? Because we've had situations where, and I've done this for a million years. This is not only in an alloy, but just other individuals where you've got two people that are seemingly similar in the same market. One person's like, leads aren't good. Other person's killing it with leads, right? I don't think there's a difference in people. They might be using the same marketing company. Even the strategies are very similar.
Right.
It's the level of effort. It's the number of calls. It's the response time. It's the follow-up. It's the sales acumen of whoever's taking those calls, right?
Right.
There's a million little details that go into that, but you have to look then at the data, because if the data says, okay, we have a large amount of leads, but we're not booking a lot of them to come in, and then the ones that we do book to come in, our close rate's only 50%. We should be much more around 80%, right? Maybe higher. Mm-hmm. Then the problem really isn't the leads. And it's very easy to say like, well, maybe it's lead quality. But again, if you put them next to someone who's in a similar market, same type of leads, they might be doing much better. So is it really the leads?
I mean, the data, right, it doesn't lie, right? The numbers are what they are. It's looking at that data appropriately. I see a lot of folks, they look at their data, just 1 month at a time. That's probably a mistake, right? You got to look at a little bit bigger.
Would you suggest like a quarter?
Yeah, a quarter, just so you can really see some trends, especially when you break down our KPIs for our business specifically. Mm-hmm. But then taking that information and truly dissecting to what we talked about beforehand, but the behaviors and the things to do to see where you can make an improvements.
Yep.
Right. And that's the key. And that's hard for people to do. I mean, it's hard to look in the mirror it's human nature to make excuses about whatever.
Yeah, we all do it. Whether we like it or not, right? We all do it. Well, I noticed you're good at that in the sense that you'll even do it for our whole brand, right? Like 70 something clubs open now and 10, 12 more coming in the next couple months. And you're always like, all right, so here's what we're seeing overall. But that takes you have to have a discerning eye. And then, for you, it might even be something that we're a process that we need to change, right? Mm-hmm. But if your ego is stuck in it, you could be like, no, this is because of this, or these folks aren't getting it, or whatever. It's like, you always look at it through like, well, here's what I'm seeing in real, like I can say whatever I want about how I feel, right? This is what the data is telling me. So this is working, or this needs improvement, either way.
Sure,
right?
Yeah.
And you're really good at doing that, and you're doing it for the big macro for the whole brand, right?
Yeah. It's a hard one. It's your idea too.
When it's not working?
Right.
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah, you don't get married to it, right? It's kind of like we talked about, like if someone hires the wrong person and they just don't want to make a change, even though the data is telling them like this person is not good at like retention or closing sales or whatever, but it's like, you just want to be right. So you just keep them around, right?
Just keep it going.
Hung up to that idea. That's going to get better. Like I'm going to wish it to be better. It's like, nope. So really look at your data. Try not to use your emotions. Keep those out of it. Even your ego, which is really hard to do, to your point. We all have done it. You just have to eat eat crow sometimes, and that'll really help you move forward. That's just part of being emotionally well sorted. We've talked about that a million times. Mm-hmm. Next one, so number 3 is a holistic approach to success. And so this I see is like, it's not always the main thing, right, that makes something come to life. So in our example, turns out the easiest thing for us, which might have been surprising when we first got started, is that implementing like really great scientific effective workouts turns out to be the easiest thing. And that's our main product. That's our hamburger, right? Like we produce a really good piece of meat. We produce a really good program. Applied to the person correctly. But that's not really what makes the service and the product come to life. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, I mean, get a workout anywhere, right?
Great point. I mean, it's in our new LMS, right? In our new course. It's like, it's got to be more than just workouts.
I mean, nobody's sticking around for just coming in and going in a circle, lifting some weights and leaving. It is all of those small things all the way built around that. I mean, it sounds simple when you say it like that, but it takes a little more work and effort, but that's the real magic.
Yeah. And it even goes back to like setting a culture, like, hey, if as a leader, if you treat your team a certain way, they're going to then in turn treat the clients that way. So it's even like creating the right culture, right? And you talk about these things, it sounds like kumbaya, campfire stuff, but you can take the same thing, the same hamburger, and if you don't deliver it with a smile and in a timely manner and in a friendly way and bring down friction and all that stuff, it's not going to work. It doesn't matter how good it tastes, right? Same thing. If you can deliver a great workout, but I feel like a lot of people can do that. Can you do it in a friendly way? Are you doing all the little things around it that matter, right?
Sure.
Is your team excited to be there? Like, are you as a leader treating your team in a way that you would like them to treat the members? And so essentially, it's like taking this thing that works really well and then putting all of this stuff around it that makes it come to life. That's the way I look at it.
We've all been to a chain restaurant, right? So they make chicken sandwiches, right? Immediately you're like, it's probably top-notch Chick-fil-A, right?
Right, yeah.
Right? You're like, what good service is. It feels different. They're still just serving you a chicken sandwich.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know that I couldn't get a better chicken sandwich at Popeyes or whatever. I haven't tried it because the customer experience at Chick-fil-A is really nice.
Right. So it's not like they came up with some crazy thing that you can only get here, right? And some people argue that the Pierce Chick-fil-A or something, but It's still a chicken sandwich. It's the delivery of it, the culture, to your point. That's what makes it.
Yeah, great point. I didn't think about Chick-fil-A. Next, number 4 is leadership with a vision. I think when we look at this, if you're going to really be holding people accountable to all these small incremental things, it can seem daunting and difficult. And that's where, like for us, EOS comes in, right? Because you can have like quarterly rocks, which means just like objectives for the quarter. There's weekly to-do lists. And I think more importantly, whether you're a part-time coach or you're an owner or you're the director or you're the head coach, it's really important that the leader creates a vision for how people fit into that puzzle. Like, what is their role and how does it contribute to the bigger picture?
Yeah.
Right. And so you have to paint a vision so that everyone understands the importance of those little things and they'll actually execute those with integrity, because they're not going to do that if the why isn't clear. It's going to be very hard to get their behaviors to be that good. Do you agree, or to perform that well?
Well, yeah, if you just feel like you're another cog in the wheel, I mean, what is your attitude going to be towards the clients? Unless you're just one of those unicorn, intrinsically motivated people, it's probably not going to be top-notch service, because you don't know what the vision of the company is. You're not bought into it. You're not all rowing in that same direction.
Right. And you can even do that through, I know as a leader, like if you're in a single location, you can just do it through enthusiasm.
Yeah.
You can literally just be so excited about helping people that it's infectious. Your team catches it and they pass it on to the customers, right? And how do you do that? Well, you champion that. It's like whatever gets rewarded.
Set a standard.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
You set a standard, you reward those behaviors, right? That you want to see more of. And it's not that complicated. I know these things seem like really easy, but they're more difficult than they sound, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, if you struggle in any of these areas, you may have a challenge even seeing that you're struggling, right? It's hard to take a step back and like, all right, does everybody share in the vision and hold that high standard, right? Like that could be tough to see because if you're
just caught up in the day-to-day.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're kind of in the business too much instead of working on it.
I just think that, as you get, like I've been an entrepreneur for 34 years. So for me, it's really comes natural to be able to say, like if somebody's like really working hard or they're struggling, to be able to zoom out or maybe just a comment or two, just to make sure that everyone knows like, hey man, we're doing really good work here. Like this is awesome. Look at us helping all these people, right? It's not like they're going to be like, yeah, if they have a really hard task in front of them, but it does make it better, makes it feel better.
Right.
And they understand that their role, even if they're a part-time coach on a Thursday night, is very important to the success of the overall business. And EOS allows you to not only do that, but it is motivating to give them a task. So they know exactly how they fit into the big picture and the vision, and then they know what the actions are that are going to drive their involvement, right? Yep. And so I really like EOS for that. So that was number 4. Number 5 is relentless focus on innovation. I think we're always doing this. I mean, I think these small incremental changes that you have implemented as examples are really good ones, where innovation doesn't have to be like, you always think innovation is like it's technology or it's AI. And we're certainly looking at a lot of those things right now. Mm-hmm. We really are, like, booking starting point sessions. There's some really cool AI tools out there that we're looking at. Now, if you guys don't ever see them, if you're listening to this and you're in the Alloy system, it's because they didn't work that well or they weren't ready yet. It wasn't personal enough to claim personal training. But I think there's other types of innovation that are just more like tactical, right? Like, one thing that you've implemented, which has really helped pre-sales, is move the pre-sale back by around 4 weeks because of like the unpredictable timeline on permitting in different municipalities. So you're like, all right, well, if somebody gets here and they've got 2 months of pre-sales without a working facility, it stands to reason that their churn will be higher when they open because it's a harder sell. So your sales percentage will go down. You're not selling face-to-face. And you're selling for a thing that doesn't exist yet. And then B, by the time someone's waited 2 months and you remind them, hey, it's time to get started, even if you stayed in contact with them, your churn's just going to be higher. I think logically that makes sense, right? But I think things like that, like sliding that back, just increases the chance of someone having a better pre-sale. So that is also innovation. Do you agree?
Oh,
it's not just technology or training tools. It can be process-oriented as well.
Which I think most people, they hear innovation, that's what they think, right? It's like, hey, what's the next tech stuff? And quite honestly, a lot of what we do and under our core values is looking for ways to make things simpler. A lot of times I'm taking away things in hopes to make your life easier to run the business,
right?
Which is hard to do sometimes, but it makes a big difference to what you're talking about, taking away something that almost made 2 seasons to your studio where you're running a little bit different play than what you are when you're open to what it is now, which is the exact same thing the whole time. Right. So I'm only teaching you one way to do the thing. There's only one way to sign up, one way to do this, which would taking away complexity to make your life easier.
Yeah. And simplicity is innovation. I think it was Socrates who said that, because we have that quote under the description of our core values, which keep it simple is our most important and 5th one. And I think the quote is, simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication, meaning like you got to be really good to be simple, right? And so really when we're looking at process, if we can take something away that is a barrier or like something that's creates complexity where it doesn't need to be, and then they can more in a more simple and straightforward fashion get to the end goal, of course we're going to do that. And that is innovation, right? So it's not always a new tool or a new piece of tech. Sometimes it's the removal of something, which is a barrier or friction, right? That's a good way to put it. Number 6 is, of course, we just talked about this last week, build resilience to overcome setbacks. I don't know how many other ways we can say this, Matt, but like, bro, if you don't have stoic control of your emotions, you are going to struggle. Agreed?
Yeah, I wouldn't have made it this far.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you're really going to struggle because, things happen and, it doesn't always go as planned and you're sometimes, not happy about it. And I'm talking about whether it's you, in your role. I'm talking about franchisees, people that are team members of franchisees in these locations. It doesn't always go your way. But your ability, and I would say this across over to every area of your life, your ability to control your emotions, again, look at the data, be rational, get some distance before you make a rash decision or say something or send that email, whatever that is. That specific skill is really important. And I will say, like, if we have it and you do a really good job of it, I mean, everyone will say, like, it could be like chaos seemingly, and they're like, why is Matt so calm? I'm like, that's just how he is, because he's not. You guys should hear him when he hangs up the phone, right? But at the same time, he's never going to present that to you guys. He's going to eat that and he's going to go do something else with it because, if he presents that, like Matt, if you present that to the franchisee, then it calms them down and then they will present it to their team that way, which will then maybe even present itself to the customer that way, right? So it's like, it's a learned skill. Like you said, I think you described it on our 34-year podcast as a muscle that can be developed. You put it under stress, it gets stronger, right? Same idea here, but it is something that if you don't have it inherently, it's something that you're really going to have to develop.
Yeah,
to be successful.
I'm still have, it's a lot of like new things that come up, in your journey, right? New first time it happened to you, whatever it is, and you may not react the best the first time, but I'm always, you try to learn from it, right? You're like, oh, yeah, all right, I'm not going to react that way. You zoom out a little bit. It's hard to do, right? Because we're building a franchise. There's lots of new stuff and stuff that we've unforeseen or things that happen. And you're like, damn. And you maybe react, maybe not the best way, but the second time it comes around, a little bit better, a little better, a little better.
Right.
But to your point, it's the ability not to put that on everybody else. Because if I'm walking around frantic all the time because something didn't go right, my whole team is going to do the same thing.
Right. And then that's going to be passed on to the franchisee, and then they're going to feel frantic, and then they're going to turn to their team frantically, and then like who knows where that goes, right? It's funny you say that because in my notes here, it does say acknowledge and learn from mistakes. So I think keeping your eyes on the long-term goal and understanding that there are going to be mistakes and mishaps and missteps and things just happen sometimes that aren't anybody's fault. Just things happen, right? Who knows, right? But your ability to keep your eyes focused on the long-term goal and look at those small mistakes the way that you just described them as learning opportunities. I know it's really cliche. Everyone says, oh, mistakes are just learning, but they are. I mean, like, just don't repeat them, right? There's no shame in making a mistake as long as you learn from it. And then you can adjust and you don't make it in the future. And sometimes you won't even know that it's a mistake while you're making it because it's the first time you've done it. If you've never been an entrepreneur, you're probably going to do some stupid stuff. That's fine. We're going to try to keep you out of the weeds as best we can. You're still going to do some wacky things.
Yeah, something's going to happen.
Yeah,
guaranteed.
That's a fact. Like that, I can tell you, there is something is going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when it does, if you control your emotions and chalk it up as a learning experience and just don't do it again or make a different decision next time or, again, go left instead of right, whatever that is. But like, I know that's happening like again for you because we're opening like 5 clubs a month. So you, the team, everyone's just learning. Sometimes just scale alone puts pressure on a system and you'll be like, oh, here's a little leak over here. It's like, well, we didn't foresee that happening.
Right.
It's fine. I can shore it up. Okay, so we'll go here instead of there, right? It's just minor adjustments. But again, the whole point of the podcast is like marginal gains do make a big difference. It's like if you turn 1 degree to the right now and you get down the road a year, you're miles away. So it's like, it is important that every little thing is clicking and working. I mean, you can't overlook any detail, I don't think, right? Yeah. That's a set of lenses to put on to run a business. Like, do you want to be great or really good, right, or not? And part of that is like, well, here's a whole bunch of things that we can do that will lead to these lagging numbers that prove that we're helping people and we're making money. So everything does matter in some ways, right?
Yeah, and don't freak out when, have a bad month because things don't perfectly align that month.
Yeah.
Right. How many times do you see that just anywhere, right? It's like the world's ending. I lost a couple extra members, say, like, it's okay.
Right.
Right. You'll be all right.
Yeah, of course. I mean, and what is your choice? You reload and you keep going.
there's no choice.
Well, and that parlays perfectly into the last point, which is number 7, is trust the process. So really what that means is if you're doing the right things, you may not see like wildly, gains happening at a really rapid rate. They might be incremental, right? So maybe you shore up some of your customer experience around a session in an alloy. And then you notice that slowly but surely your retention rate gets better and better and better, right? Or maybe you have a staff turnover, right? That always leads to some kind of turmoil. And you churn a little bit more that month than you did the month before, right? Then you get some new people in and you're like, all right, well, now we're really going to focus on all these little things that we weren't doing before. Okay, great. Well, it's not going to happen the next month. It's probably going to take 3, 4, 5 months before you're like, oh, damn, we didn't churn out anybody this month, right? Amazing. And so always think about, what was it? Remember the Titans with Denzel Washington, right? And he's like, they're running some offense like the veer option or something. And he's like, it always works, but it's just like Novocaine. Just got to give it time. And I feel like that's the same thing with like business systems and changes. They typically don't result in like wildly different results in the first week, I mean, comically, we've talked about, in the past, people, you give them business advice, they go implement it for 2 weeks, and it's like, that's not working. It's like, it's 2 weeks. Like you have to trust that these things are working. And I think if you have that control of your emotions and you look at it, it's like logically providing a really good customer experience around a really good scientific workout should lead to better client retention. I mean, that is very obvious. Do you agree?
Yes.
But it's not instantaneous. And that can be frustrating at times. So you've just got to trust the process. Again, it's very simple. Like, okay, if we increase our sales acumen, we're going to close more of our leads that are coming in. No doubt, right? Mm-hmm. Might it take a few months to see the results of that as that training kicks in? Sure, it might, right? Mm-hmm. But if you know that, if you can emphatically say, increasing the sales acumen of my team is going to help close more leads, I don't think anybody would argue with that, right?
Nope.
But you've got to give it time. You've got to trust that those things are going to help. You've got to trust that if you stay on your team about running the 7 core tenets of a great session, as an example, that it's going to result in better retention. I think logically it's like, hey, if we did a great job running sessions, you think more people might stay? I think everybody would say yes. It's like, okay, well then let's slowly start to get this implemented, right?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing with process, and that's in EOS, right? That's one of the things you look at when you have a healthy business. First, do you even know your processes? Are you aware of them? Because you can't even know what to fix, right? So you know what your actual processes are. Are you actually applying them? That's going to lead to everything you just said, from helping retention, could be sales. I mean, look at marketing. That's like biggest trusted process thing out there. Like you consistently have to put yourself out there, trusting that it's going to bear fruit. Right? It's hard to do. And for a business owner, I could see it. It's like very quick to react when things don't work out the way you exactly see. That's when you want to fall off process. It's not that you're maybe not doing it, it's maybe you are, and you maybe didn't see it, the results exactly the way you foresaw them. And then it's immediately like, oh, I got to do something else. Right? I got to pivot.
Yeah, to your point, but you don't pivot 2 weeks after you implement something, right?
No.
and I think we do a pretty good job, and we'll continue to do a better job of setting the right expectations, because we know this, because we've been in the business forever, and we've been entrepreneurs since the get. So it's like, yeah, for us, I fully understand, like, all right, well, we're going to change some things. Yeah, our churn's a little too high here. We were 2% higher this month. So let's do some audits on the sessions and make sure we're doing a good job. Well, it's not going to happen. It's going to take me a minute to audit, get that together, provide feedback in a relevant way, understand what, explain to the team through that common win why it's so important. Then they're going to slowly get up to speed, doing it really, really, really well over time. Right. And then, yes, 3 months later, my retention is much better, right? But it doesn't happen overnight. And I think having that expectation is a bit unrealistic. So again, that control the emotions and just trusting the process. Yeah. Especially when you're into a franchise, right? Because like we've done it for 34 years. I love the alignment of franchising, because we always will say, listen, like if you guys don't make money, we don't make money. And that is a fact. So any advice that we give you is only to help you be successful. because that is by default how we are successful, right?
Yep.
And so I like that. I like that alignment in franchising. So you can trust that you're getting really good info because that's how we make money too, right? And we want to help a bunch of people as well. So anyway, so that's the 7. Power of marginal gains, 1. Data-driven decisions, 2. Holistic approach to success. That's the stuff around the main thing, right? Leadership with a vision, paint the vision, let the folks understand how they're a part of it. Focus on innovation. And innovation isn't necessarily just tech or product. Sometimes it's process, right? Relentless, build resilience to overcome setbacks. That's like emotional control. We talk about that a million times. And then trust the process. Know that if you're doing the little things well, it will manifest itself eventually, but have a realistic timeline. I think the fact is that you know it's going to happen. You just have to temper that excitement for it to happen like yesterday.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything else to add?
No, good stuff.
Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Matt's back 2 weeks in a row, folks. You're welcome.
I'm out. See you 2025.
Peace.